Hello and welcome to this episode of Book Experience. The book that we'll be talking about today is called The Vegetarian by Han Kang. It's a Korean book and it's translated by Deborah Smith. This book was a recommendation by Sayantan Goswami. Based on what I read about it in Amazon and the recommendations that it had, I went ahead and procured it. Now, this is a paperback only version as of now, so there's no Kindle edition, which had its own challenges because typically my reading time is late at night, and I wasn't able to read this because I needed to be beside my kid. She has an issue in sleeping by herself, so I had to be there, and I couldn't read the book, but I really wanted to, which was a botheration really. The other issue that I would say is the print. It's very small. I'm not sure if it will show. It's very small print, right? So that was my other issue. I'm very highly myopic, so this was a bit of a challenge. Now, the other thing is this came with an 80 rupees delivery charge. So it's a 350 bucks or 450 bucks book, but it had an 80 rupees delivery charge, which is pretty hefty again. So some logistics are issues are there around this book, but if you set that aside, right? I'm very thankful to Santan for recommending this author. The movie is very lyrical. It's very visual. It's almost like looking at if you remember the 60s 70s French movies, right? The European masters. That's the kind of feel that you get when you read this. So it's very, very, very visual in a way, and very poetic. Um, Now, the structure of the book. There are three stories, right, and each of which can read as its own story. So they are interconnected, but there's no twist to that interconnection. You figure out fairly early on what the connection is, and but each of them you can actually read as a standalone story, right? So that is very interesting. The three stories are in sequential order: the vegetarian, and then you have Mongolian mark, and then the third one is flaming trees. So the plot point is basically there's this young housewife who one fine day decides to go vegetarian. I'm vegetarian with a vengeance, right? And people are trying to figure out what made her take the decision, and then they are trying to convince her to come out of it. We have to understand this is Korea, right? This is not India, where there's the large demographic is vegetarian, and there is very pro vegetarian narrative around. So in Korea, I think this is something unthinkable, right? And it's not religion that she's being driven by, and she's not very clear why she's doing it. Mm, but she's just not complying, right? So and the repercussions that it has in her family and beyond. So plot point, I'd say fairly simple pivot, but the complex way in which with it's dealt, right? It's extraordinary. I mean, you have to read it to understand what I'm talking about. But then again, this will not be everyone's cup of tea. I can understand that because there is an element of the absurd, a very strong element of absurd, and very disturbing. Subject areas, particularly where it ventures into the second story. I will not give away what is the nature of that disturbance, but even somebody like me who has, I mean, I embrace the disturbance, right? I embrace the chaos, but for me also it was difficult at times. And personally, for myself, I mean, unlike the Eric LaRocca book that I read earlier, this one I was reading when I had got a mishap news in my extended family. One of my cousin's wife passed away, and she was my age, and she has two young children, right? So that was something that was weighing on in my mind when I was reading this, and overall it created a sense of malaise in me, which is why, although I loved the author, and I'm astounded by the translation, because this has to be a super hard book to translate. I might be taking my time in reading this author again, but to the brave hearts, I mean, this is something to explore. I have not read Korean literature before, but this was a revelation. So that was it for today. Thank you. Please let me know what you think about it, and do drop your book recommendations. I'm happy chirpy books would be welcome. Thank you.